The Soviet Union invasion. In April of 1978, Afghanistan's central government, President Mohammad Daud Khan, was overthrown by military officers led by Nur Mohammad Taraki. Power was thereafter shared by two Marxist-Leninist political groups, the KHALQ Party and the Parsham Party. The new government, which had very little support from the people, forged close ties with the Soviet Union. Rebels began to rise against the new government among both tribal, urban groups, and the Mujahideen, guerrilla freedom fighters in Islamic countries. At the end of December of 1979, the Soviet Union sent thousands of troops to Afghanistan and tried to gain complete military and political control of the country. This event, along with the brutal purges of all domestic opposition, activated a ruthless decade-long war among the Afghani people. The Soviet Union supported a communist party and intervened into the Afghan government and began broad land and social reforms that were fiercely opposed by the Muslim and largely anti-communist population. Muslim guerrillas fought against the Communist Party since they wanted to remain an anti-communist country. The Soviet troops remained in the country till February 1989. Soviets sent in 30,000 troops. The Americans' response to the invasion was to provide aid for the Afghans. It was so important that President Jimmy Carter to request that the Senate postpone on the SALT-II nuclear weapon treaty and recalls the U.S. ambassador to the Soviet Union, signifying severe damages with the U.S.-Russian relations. As the United States backed Afghanistan, the Mujahideen grew and spread throughout the country. The Afghan war instantly settled down into a deadlock, with over than 100,000 Soviet troops dominating the cities, larger towns, and major forts, and the Mujahideen moving with relative freedom throughout the landscape. Soviet troops tried to destroy the guerrillas by numerous tactics, but insurgents generally dodged their offensives. The Soviets then tried to defeat the Mujahideen's civilian support by bombing the rural areas. These attacks provoked an enormous departure from the countryside. By 1982, about 2.8 million Afghans had sought asylum in Pakistan, and another 1.5 million had fled to Iran. The Mujahideen were ultimately able to overcome Soviet air power through the use of shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles supplied by the U.S. Nur Mohammad Taraki was elected president of the Revolutionary Council and prime minister of the country. The leaders of the new government insisted that they were not ruled by the Soviet Union and claimed to have policies based on nationalism, Islam, socioeconomic justice, and non-alignment in foreign affairs, plus respect for all agreements and treaties that were previously signed by the Afghan government. The KHALQ and Parsham unity faded as the People's Party emerged more dominantly, with a large base of power in military. The Taraki regime announced its reforms. They included elimination of usury, equal rights for women, land reforms, administrative decrees in classic Marxist-Leninist rhetoric. This reform program threatened to undermine basic Afghan cultural patterns, and political repression antagonized segments of the population. Revolts spread throughout all of Afghanistan's provinces, and periodic explosions rocked Kabul and other major cities. On February 14, 1979, Adolf Dubs was killed. On March 28, 1979, Hafizullah Amin became prime minister. Taraki remained president of the Revolutionary Council and secretary-general of the PDPA. Afghan army soon collapsed due to the revolts in the countryside, and the Amin regime asked to receive aid from the Soviet Union. On September 14 of 1979, Taraki was killed during a confrontation between Taraki and a group of Amin supporters. Admin was trying to gain interest in Pakistan and the United States. On December 24 of 1979, the Soviets began the invasion of Afghanistan. On December 27, Amin and many of his followers were killed. Barack Karmal became Prime Minister, the President of Revolutionary Council, and the Secretary General of PDPA, after returning from the Soviet Union. In early 1980, several regional groups known as the Mujahideen united in Afghanistan to resist the Soviet invaders. On May 4 of 1986, Mohammad Najibullah replaced Karmal as Secretary General of the PDPA, and in November Karmal was relieved of all his government and party posts. A national reconciliation campaign approved by the Politburo in September 1986. A new constitution changed the name of the country back to the Republic of Afghanistan and allowed other political parties to participate in the government. On May 4, 1987. Despite renewals of the official ceasefire, Afghanistan continued to resist the Soviet Union. The morale in the Afghan military was very low. Men were being drafted only to withdraw at the earliest opportunity. The armies once had a total of 105,000 in 1987 to about 20,000 in 1987. However, the Afghans continued to resist the Soviet forces. Helicopter, gunship, and jet bomber were the only weapons systems that overpowered the resistance. In late 1986, the resistance began to stock up on better weapons. The weapons were mainly received from the United States, the United Kingdom, and China. The Soviet and Afghan air forces began suffering devastating casualties. In May of 1985, 7 major resistance groups based in Peshawar to form an alliance, due to pressure from the Pakistan's outside supporters and from guerrilla commanders. The civil war in Afghanistan continued, and the Mujahideen formed an interim government in Pakistan and resisted efforts of reconciliation by Najibullah. In 1992, the Najibullah lost power and the coalition of rebel forces set up a fragile government. However, general peace and stability remained a distant hope from the war-torn nation. The economy remained in shambles, and with the fall of the communist government, the Afghanistan government appeared to be in a course of Islamicization. The war in Afghanistan continues to destroy lives, due to the direct consequences of violence and the war-induced breakdown of public health, security, and infrastructure. Nearly every factor associated with the premature death, poverty, malnutrition, poor sanitation, lack of access to health care, environmental degradation is a result of the current war in Afghanistan. About 104,000 people have been killed in the Afghanistan war since 2001. More than 31,000 of those killed have been civilians, and an additional 41,000 civilians have been injured since 2001. As of August 2016, more than 31,000 civilians are estimated to have died violent deaths due to the war. Many of the Afghans dealing with ill health and war wounds find it difficult to get to hospitals and clinics because of violence, making roads unsafe. The war has increased the effects of poverty, malnutrition, poor sanitation, lack of access to health care, and environmental degradation to Afghans' health.